One of my filmmaker friends told me how movies are made. He said, you put an ordinary person into an extraordinary circumstance, and then you have them figure out how on earth to get out of it. The story I'm about to tell you fits that formula perfectly. It's about this guy you might not have liked very much a few years ago. You see, he was a pretty left-brained, analytical guy who was fully involved in a consulting business, and although he cared about the rest of the world, he knew realistically that there wasn't anything he could do. I mean, realistically, the world's problems are far too big, and he didn't see how he could possibly find the time to do anything about them anyway. He was pretty much just a regular guy. But then something happened to him, actually something rather horrible. He suffered a serious injury. Now, at first, he thought he'd recover and be back to his normal life, but sometimes the universe has other plans. He didn't know that he'd have to endure multiple surgeries that wouldn't work. He didn't know that he'd spend years of his life lying in bed, and the pain he'd endure was more than anything he'd ever encountered in his life. As he lay there in bed, he started thinking, and he thought and thought and thought. He thought about his condition, about his future, and about people he'd known and the lives they've led, and then he realized something extraordinary. He realized that in spite of being mired in what most people would call a kind of hell, unable to drive, unable to walk around freely, unable to make a living, and forced to live on a meager income, that he was, well, he was actually happy. Not a little happy, but very happy. In fact, he was happier than he'd ever been in his life. Now, it wasn't long before this guy picked up pen and paper and wrote a letter to a friend who wasn't happy. And he decided to help this person who had been unhappy for decades. So he set out to write this letter about how to create happiness and how that knowledge found him. You see, he realized that unbeknownst to him, as a child, he'd actually been trained in the art of happiness. Before he knew it, that letter he was writing took up his whole writing pad. After 35 pages, he had a problem. He had so much more to tell his friend about how he achieved happiness, but no more paper. And then it dawned on him that if he wrote a book instead on the subject of happiness, he could help not one, but thousands of people. Before he knew it, he wasn't writing a book anymore either. He wanted to help more people, and he realized he could do it by donating part of the proceeds of his book to others in need. And then he realized that if he created an organization dedicated to helping all the world's people achieve happiness, he could do even more. He had no idea at that point that he had just crossed a one-way bridge from which he could no longer return. He could no longer return to the small life he had, because by extending his love far beyond the little self of a man lying in bed who was previously only concerned with his own well-being, he was now operating in the realm of mastery. His book became an audiobook that he recorded and produced lying in bed. After all, what else could he do, because he couldn't go to a recording studio? But then he had to figure out how to sell this book of his, because he still couldn't get out of bed, and the internet became his new focus. But in the process of reaching out to people who might be able to help him sell his book, he came across an audio recording that would completely change his life. After hearing the words spoken by another author, he just knew he had to work with this man. He was so moved by the spirituality and humanity behind the author's voice. So our hero contacts the author to see if he would be interested in helping him promote his audiobook, because the man had a mailing list and he had a product. Together, they could work as a team, a joint venture marketing team. He soon learned that this author was one of the very first people on the internet to ever do a joint venture like this. In fact, he was one of the handful of internet marketing pioneers responsible for getting some of the first big companies and marketing gurus of today started on the path to earning big incomes online. Sounds pretty promising, doesn't it? Sadly, though, the author turned him down. He was nice enough, but said no thanks. Well, Some months passed, and the man tried again. He tried by reaching out to the same author, but this time with a different product they could market together. And of course, again, it was to do with helping people become happier. Once again, the author turned him down. This time, though, the universe would smile his way in its greater knowingness, because when the front and back doors are locked, sometimes, the side door isn't. 2 days after being turned down the second time, the author checked his email, and in his inbox was a message from the guy he just turned down for the second time 2 days ago. Of course, he knew what the email would say. It would be a thank you for his time type of email. Well, he opened it anyway, but now here was something he didn't expect. The man didn't thank him for his time. He wrote something far, far different. He said he had 2 dear friends, one in Jerusalem, Israel, and the other in Beirut, Lebanon. He'd sent emails to both of them, and he tried calling both of them, and neither one responded. You see, this was in the summer of 2006 when Israel and Lebanon were hurling bombs over the border at each other, and he wrote that he couldn't sleep because he was now seriously concerned about whether his friends were even alive. So at 3:30 in the morning, he didn't write a courtesy thank you for your time email. Instead, he was lying awake, worrying about his friends and unable to sleep. As he lay there in the darkness for half an hour, he finally asked the universe out loud, "What on earth can I do to help make things better?" With the man now fully listening and with an open heart, the answer came immediately, and it echoed in his mind in the darkness. The answer was as clear as if someone was right there in the room speaking to him. The voice said, 10 million votes for peace. And he just knew it had something to do with the author who turned him down again 2 days earlier. And so he sent that email to the author expressing his idea of what they could do together to help make things better in the world. He just knew in his heart of hearts that this author would understand because he'd heard the Spirit in the man's voice. I'd like to share that Spirit with you so you can hear it too. This is the original recording the man heard that moved him so strongly to want to work with that author. It's now being set to video. It's just 177 words, and it has the capacity to change your life if your soul is listening. Here is the legacy you leave in the author's own rich voice.
All you will leave behind for the world to remember is your legacy. So ask yourself, will you have earned the respect of your peers and the admiration of your critics? Will you have acted humbly at the peak of success and graceful in the face of defeat? Will you have kept your childlike wonder and reveled in the beauty of the world and the small miracles that each day brought? Will you be remembered for how often you laughed and brought smiles to the hearts of others? Will small children and the elderly have been overjoyed to be around you? Will others have trusted you with their innermost secrets? Will you have forgiven and offered heartfelt apology? Will you have looked for the very best and done your utmost to build worth in others? Will you have fed a hungry child, or clothed a naked man, or given hope to a stranger in dire need? Will you have left this world a better place by the life you have lived? What legacy will you leave?
Isn't that beautiful? So at 6:42 a.m. that morning, the guy's phone rings, and this time it's the author calling him with a remarkable story about what just happened to him that very morning. You see, the author is a well-known marketer, and he receives hundreds of emails every morning, mostly with offers to do joint venture marketing projects. Every morning, the same thing, email after email. But this morning, something very different happened. Oh, he got his hundreds of emails as usual, but it was how they landed in his inbox that opened the side door of possibility and of spirit. The very first email he opened was a CNN news alert containing the latest gory details of the bloodbath in the Middle East. It was, in fact, so gory that the author literally felt nauseous. As the universe would have it, the very next email, tucked in right below it, was the one from the guy who had a plan for what to do about the bloodbath. Within 19 hours, they had a whole team assembled, people who were all inspired by this man's same message, and quickly they renamed the project to 10 million clicks for peace, like mouse clicks. Within days, hundreds of people volunteered to help. It wasn't long after that they would receive endorsements by Nobel Peace Prize winner Archbishop Desmond Tutu, iconic spiritual teacher Deepak Chopra, the co-founder of Chicken Soup for the Soul books, Jack Canfield, and even the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, Arun Gandhi. Many, many other endorsements followed. You see, in the universe, there are no accidents. A serious physical injury that would have crippled most emotionally and left them thoroughly depressed served instead to inspire spiritually. The universe continued to speak to this man, and today he is on a journey. Actually, it's a mission, really, to impact millions of people and literally change the world. And of course, as the universe continued to smile on this man, now working on a mission of love, his health improved to the point that he could finally get out of bed. Sometimes the universe won't let you get up until you've awoken to love. Isn't that a great story of transformation? I learned about this story from the man himself, because the guy in this story is me. And the author in this story is my now great friend, mentor, and my partner in 10 Million Clicks for Peace, who changed my life. He is also the co-founder of Modern Day Mastery, Rick Beneteau.